Hey everybody, welcome back into the Frogs Up TCU Sports Podcast. I'm Russ Hodges. That is Anthony North. We appreciate you coming back in and joining us as we have a big slate of TCU sports to hit on this Sunday evening. The comeback that almost was TCU making it exciting at the end in Fort Worth yesterday evening against the number 7 team in the country. Possibly the last time TCU will play Texas, but the Longhorns escaping Fort Worth 29-26, the final score. We will get into that game, talk about what went right, what went wrong, and reflect on that comeback and what TCU can do over these last couple of weeks. With 2 games left in the regular season, we have a lot of basketball stuff to hit on this evening as well. The men's team picking up a big win over Omaha on Thursday. The women's team continuing to play great ball, picking up a win on Wednesday over Texas A&M-Kingsville. And the volleyball team going on the road and achieving a historic sweep over top 25 Baylor. A great episode coming up. And Anthony, I've been watching a lot of football this weekend, of course, with college yesterday. Big 12 games going on in 4 different time frames. And then we got NFL action today. And got to give a shout out to Quentin Johnston catching his first NFL touchdown in that Chargers game, helping out my fantasy cause with Justin Herbert as my quarterback. But it was great to see Quentin Johnston finally get involved with this Chargers offense, and just a great weekend of football all around for me.
Yeah, well, Titans lost, so not so excited about that for myself. But on different kind of football, another Frog shout out, just to go ahead and say Yasmin Ryan for the Gotham FC won the NWSL championship on Saturday night. So as TCU was mounting the comeback in the Carter, she was out there winning a big trophy. So congrats to that Pro Frog as well, going and getting the professional soccer championship for the second year in a row too, with 2 different teams. So that was an exciting other football note.
Yeah, Yasmin Ryan, I believe she won it with the Portland Thorns last year, who drafted her, and to see her go to another team and help lead them to a championship is really exciting stuff. The NWSL is a lot of fun to watch, so if y'all haven't checked it out, please do so. There are quite a few TCU Horned Frogs, including Messiah Bright, who had a fantastic rookie season. So great stuff happening for TCU athletics at the pro level. But we have a lot of collegiate Horned Frog action to get into this evening. So let's waste no more time. This episode, of course, is brought to y'all by our friends at Charlie Hustle Clothing Company. Charlie Hustle, vintage made fresh. Go to charliehustle.com now. Get your TCU swag, t-shirts, hoodies. Use the promo code FROGSOWAR. Get 15% off your TCU items. Or if you'd like to support any of the other programs in the Big 12, use the promo code TEN1215. That's our partnership with the 1012 network. That gets you 15% off any non-sale items at charliehustle.com. Again, Charlie Hustle, vintage made fresh. They have some great stuff there. Also, we have an update finally about the On It athlete trading cards. I know we've talked about this a few times on the podcast, and we've put some information out on our socials, Facebook and Twitter at Frogs of War, and our website, frogswar.com. We do have an update from what I was told on Friday. The TCU football trading cards are printing. They should be shipping out hopefully within the next week or so. There was a little bit of a delay with getting information, photos, and doing signatures with the football players. I was told that signature event happened actually last week. So the date on the website right now says November 9th for shipments. Obviously, that's passed. So hopefully within the next few days, those cards do ship. We know that quite a few people have placed pre-orders through our affiliate link. So the On It card should be coming out here pretty soon. As soon as we have more information, we will pass that along. And Anthony, I know you pre-ordered a couple of those packs, so I'm sure you're excited to get your hands on those and share those with your little ones.
Yeah, looking forward to those coming in. Looking forward to, fingers crossed that some of those signed cards come across in the packs that we get. I think that's a pretty cool thing to have an opportunity to get that. It's pretty limited run here, and they'll be pretty one of a kind type cards. So yeah, it's an exciting opportunity, and hope you guys have checked those out and find the link with this podcast or on our website and socials as well.
And speaking of TCU football, let's get right into it. TCU hosting Texas for the last time as members of the Big 12. Highly anticipated game. TCU coming in as just under 2 touchdown underdogs, and it looked for a while that TCU might be dead in the water, losing 26-6 at halftime. TCU gets outscored 19-0 in the second quarter, but TCU played with tremendous energy and effort in the second half. The defense did an outstanding job against the run. TCU's offense finally got around and was making some plays. Josh Hoover stepped up and made some big throws. TCU outscores Texas 20-3 in the fourth quarter. Jonathan Brooks exits with an injury. Late in the game for Texas, it seems like everything is going TCU's way. The Frogs get within 3 points, and they just cannot make the final big defensive play late in the game. Texas with a 3rd and 12, deep in its own territory. Quinn Ewers fires a bomb down the sideline to A.D. Mitchell, who again makes a clutch play. He's been making clutch plays throughout his collegiate career, whether it's been with Georgia or with Texas this season, and again makes a big play against TCU. Burns Avery Helm one-on-one, catches about a 40-yard pass, and that was the nail in the coffin as Texas escapes Fort Worth with a 29-26 win. TCU falls to 4-6 on the season, 2-5 in the Big 12 as we've talked about the season being on life support coming in, and you have 2 games left, and you absolutely have to win both of them in order to get to 6-6 and get to a bowl game. So TCU will have a home game this coming Saturday against Baylor. That'll be at 2:30, and then you go on the road to face Oklahoma in Norman. That's an extremely tall task, and Baylor has struggled a little bit, but it's a rivalry game. You never know what's going to happen there. Anthony, I was watching this game, and at halftime, 26-6, TCU's down. I didn't think TCU was really out of it at that point. I felt that if TCU was able to make the right adjustments in the second half, they would be able to come back and make a game out of this. And, Texas, I think, got a little conservative in the second half with its approach offensively. They really leaned on that run game, which was excellent in the first half, but not so much in the second half. And that fourth quarter, I was so ready to just jump out of my seat. Everything seemed to be going TCU's way. You have the miraculous touchdown catch by J.P. Richardson. You score on a red zone touchdown run by Amani Bailey. Savion Williams, man, you could take his jersey off and replace it with a Quentin Johnston jersey, and you couldn't tell the difference. He was unbelievable in this game. 11 catches, 162 yards, 1 touchdown. But TCU just came up a little bit short. And that deep ball to A.D. Mitchell down the sideline, when it seems like everything's going TCU's way, I feel like that's just one of those plays that kind of just sums up the way this season has gone for TCU. But Anthony, what are your thoughts on just, as you're watching this game in the fourth quarter, what's kind of going through your mind at that point? And, ultimately, what were your thoughts on the outcome of this game?
Yeah, that fourth quarter, I mean, it felt like TCU was going to get that magic moment that TCU would have the ball with an opportunity to win the game. And, that as this Horned Frog team has several times this season, and this time it was the defense who had the opportunity to get the stop to give the offense a chance to go win the game and couldn't get the job done here. But, really, I feel like TCU outplayed Texas in this game, really the entire game outside of the final couple minutes of the first half, where Texas scored 13 points in quick succession in like a 3-play span. And TCU kind of choked the game away in that moment. Obviously was able to come back and make it a game in the end, but you just ran out of time. That sequence to close the first half was just such a killer. I think it pulls the wind out of your sails in such a way that you do feel like you are not just contending with this top 10 team that's up there for the college football playoff, but you're probably outplaying them. you've got these drives that end in field goals, and shout out to Griffin Kell with his 2 field goal makes, the 56-yarder. I am shocked they even sent him out there to attempt that kick. He was kicking with the wind, so that was helpful, but he nailed it. So that was kudos there. But you get those drives where you are in the scoring zone and you don't come away with touchdowns. And against a team like this, that's just huge missed opportunities. You get the big interception, and I'm sure we'll talk about this a bunch, but this play where Millard Bradford picks off Quinn Ewers, he returns it back across midfield, and Jordan Whittington misses a tackle on this return, falls down, gets himself back up, and chases down Bradford from behind, knocks the ball away on the tackle. Xavier Worthy's there to pick it up, and it gives Texas a first down after it had just thrown the game away. I mean, given TCU an opportunity there to potentially go take the lead in this game early in the game, sure, but just a huge swing there because Texas jumps right back and scores a couple plays later, so or later on that drive. So turnovers, missed opportunities. Really, though, this Texas team is felt very much like previous Texas teams, where really TCU played with them every step of the way. I think there were some matchups where TCU was clearly outmatched in this game, but on the scoreboard, TCU was right there, and it feels like just a huge missed opportunity here for the Frogs.
And you bring up that Millard Bradford interception that led to a fumble. I mean, if that play doesn't sum up TCU's 2023 season in a nutshell, I don't know what play does. I mean, that's the biggest play your defense made all game, and you still found a way to screw it up. Like that play was just I face palmed so hard after that play. That was just such a tough scene for that TCU defense, which really struggled in the first half. I mean, Jonathan Brooks had a 73-yard catch and run that led to a touchdown, I believe, on the very next play. TCU Texas finished with 330 total yards in the first half. And again, 19-0, Texas outscored TCU in the second quarter. The defense just didn't have many answers for the Longhorns in the first half. And a big surprise to me was Xavier Worthy really torched Josh Newton in this game. I was very surprised by that. I thought Josh Newton was going to be able to step up and hold his own against Worthy and Mitchell, especially considering how TCU handled Xavier Worthy last season. And maybe that just speaks to how great of a player Trey Tomlinson is. But I was not expecting Xavier Worthy to come in and have this kind of a game. I believe he had 10 catches for 137 yards and had multiple big plays while being covered by Josh Newton. He drew multiple holding penalties where it was blatantly obvious that Newton was holding. So it was really, one of the only games where Josh Newton was targeted frequently, and the Longhorns were winning that matchup consistently. It felt in a way similar to the Trey Tomlinson, Rashee Rice matchup against SMU last year, where Rashee Rice early on was kind of having his way with Trey Tomlinson, making a couple grabs and drawing some flags when he wasn't getting the ball. So that was a big surprise for me, seeing that TCU secondary, specifically Josh Newton, struggle against those Texas receivers. But you didn't have many answers in the run game either. And the offense for TCU didn't do the defense too many favors in the first half. TCU really struggled to get anything going offensively in the first half. And Amani Bailey, I think, only had 4 carries in the first half. And thankfully, Kendall Briles woke up in the second half and realized that he has one of the best running backs in the Big 12, because Bailey was getting far more work in the second half. But, Anthony, as you watch the first half, what was Texas able to do defensively that disrupted this TCU offense? And what surprised you or Just what were your thoughts on the defensive effort from TCU in the first half as well?
Yeah, I mean the TCU offense, I think Kendall Briles or the offense in general got a little bit scared of running Bailey because that drive that led to the first field goal, the that opened the scoring in the game, it came to a conclusion with two Bailey runs that went for no gain.
Hmm.
That's how I'm remembering at least, and that was, Bailey got maybe one more touch the rest of the half, going nearly the entire second quarter without a rush. Yeah, 4 or 5 carries in the half and just completely underutilized. But part of that was of the lack of success there early in that game where, um, he wasn't getting a ton of room. He did still have, like, I don't know, he was averaging over 40 yards a carry on those carries, but enough of those were getting stuffed that I guess, the offense didn't want to go with that. And when the offense isn't able to run, it's not working well. I think one thing that really hurt TCU in this game that it felt like, uh, I'm I'm not sure how different this, maybe things are different if it's Chandler Morris out there, is Josh Hoover had no mobility. Part of that was he was getting swarmed. I mean, the offensive line was getting dominated at times during this game. And, he suffered multiple sacks in this game, ends up 3 sacks for a loss of 24 yards. But those are the only rush plays that he has. He didn't have a single carry in this game, not a single rush attempt. They were still running all of those plays where it fakes action as if the quarterback is going to potentially run, but there was no chance he was ever running. Um, I don't know if that is designed to not have Hoover run, or if the offense doesn't trust Hoover to run, or if Hoover didn't trust himself against this defense to be able to get anything out of, on the ground. But these plays near the goal line where we're spread out 5 wide and you've got Josh Hoover, eh, there's no threat of a quarterback draw, no threat of quarterback run. I think that was pretty tough for this offense, that um, Texas was able to key in on rush downs. They knew it was going to be Bailey, and pass downs, they could just pin their ears back and come and get them. So I feel like TCU's complete abandonment of the quarterback run possibility, even the threat, really hurt TCU in this game. And
And
yeah, the Josh Newton stuff, man, I can't believe that it turned out like that. We talked in the preview a little bit about how in last year's game, Xavier Worthy and Jatavian Sanders had some drops that were really costly, and they had drops in this game that were costly early on. But it just, Ewers was able to pepper Worthy enough that he really had Newton in a torture chamber. And even when, they had some of these little short passes to Worthy, that he's just such a dynamic athlete. He's so difficult to tackle
Mhm.
um, in the open field, that I think it was Bud Clark who had the missed tackle and then
Yep.
catches up from behind and has the unsportsmanlike or the unnecessary roughness out of bounds. And that drive towards the end of the first half, um, had 3 or 4 first downs earned via a penalty. A couple on Newton, that one on Clark on the late hit, and you know Texas picked up again 3 or 4 first downs on third downs on that drive. It was just a huge drive where the game was very, very much in the balance at that point. Close score. They end up getting the touchdown, and I think that's the Adonai Mitchell touchdown. And right back, 1 minute left in the half, and the very first play after the kickoff is a Josh Hoover interception that Texas converts into a touchdown, and that lead goes from a slim lead to a 20-point lead in the matter of a couple minutes. Just a huge, terrible turn of events. And I don't know that there's a whole lot more that the TCU defense could have done, frankly. I mean, TCU had had a fourth down stop, had 3 and outs, had the mostly Jonathan Brooks was relatively held in check. I mean, he's going to get his because he's a very good running back who has, gets a lot of carries, but and he had the one big explosive play, but other than that, it wasn't like he was absolutely feasting on this TCU defense like we've seen. It felt like Kansas State feasted. Taj Brooks feasted. I didn't feel that way with Jonathan Brooks. It felt like it just an accumulation of things. But those plays there at the end of the half that put you in that hole, I don't know. There's just no coming back from it.
And as we transition into the second half, I thought the TCU defense really took advantage of Texas getting conservative in the second half. And granted, it was Quinn Ewer's first game back from the AC joint injury. They had a 20-point halftime lead. Jonathan Brooks was very effective in the first half. Maybe they just wanted to protect their lead, play it safe. Given that Ewers also had an interception in the first half, they want to take care of the football. They don't want to make high-risk plays. But TCU answered the call defensively throughout the second half, getting stops in the run game. And dare I say, Jamoy Hodge had a really good game. He had 11 total tackles. He was in the right spots. He made big stops in the run game. And I feel like just watching TCU this season, he's had some games where he's really struggled. But I thought he had a really good performance in this game. And TCU offensively started to really run the football more in the second half. Again, Bailey had, I think, 4 carries in the first half. He had 16 or 17 in the second half, including a red zone touchdown. And that's something I touched on before the Texas Tech game was the red zone woes for TCU, in my opinion, are in large part because they don't run the ball in the red zone. And during the Texas Tech game, they had 3 red zone drives that were capped off with rushing touchdowns. Trey Sanders had 1, Imani Bailey had 2. In this Texas game, 3 red zone drives in the second half. Your first one, you ran Bailey down to the 2-yard line, and then you go pass, incomplete, third down, fourth down, turnover on downs. The first incompletion was a fade to Savion that Hoover overthrew, but regardless, TCU hasn't had success with fades all season. Why you're calling that play there, I really don't know. I understand that Savion is having a good game, but you ran the ball 4 straight times with Bailey and picked up good yardage. Trey Sanders, I don't think he got a single touch in this game. Cam Cook had 1 touch. Maybe if they wanted to spell Bailey there because he got 4 carries in a row, but Trey Sanders has shown he can pick up 1 or 2 yards when he has to. I just didn't understand why TCU went away from the run game there and they wind up turning the ball over on downs. And that was a key point in the second half where if you score a touchdown there, it could be a different game. Now, if TCU comes back on its next red zone drive, Bailey rushes for a touchdown that sparks the fourth quarter rally where TCU outscores Texas 20-3. Third red zone drive, Trent Battle had a productive run on a short yardage second down play, gets TCU inside the 10. First down, incomplete pass. Second down, short run for Bailey. Third down, incomplete pass. Fourth down, you go, I think, empty, 5 wide on 4th and goal at the 5-yard line. And credit to JP Richardson. He made a unbelievable circus catch. If y'all haven't checked this out on social media, I think I included it in my football recap for this game, but JP Richardson made maybe the catch of the year for TCU's offense. Just a circus grab where he tips the ball to himself and gets down right at the goal line for a touchdown. But it was just so, like, why TCU's done this all year where it just feels like they make things so much more difficult than they need to be. Last week against Texas Tech, you had so much success running the football in the red zone, and you just kind of got away from that in this game. And Amani Bailey ultimately wound up with 98 rushing yards on 21 carries. He had a good game. So you got to continue to feed him and run the football in the red zone. You have to get back to that over these next couple of games. And Josh Hoover, I thought he had a good game. I thought he made some really nice throws. You can see the gunslinger mentality that he sort of has, and he made some really nice throws in this game. He had some throws that were, well off, especially early on, but he finishes with 302 yards, 2 touchdowns, one interception, and the interception was at a really inopportune time. It leads directly to another Texas touchdown. You're just going to have to learn to grow through that and deal with that, having a redshirt freshman quarterback who's only started so many games. But Anthony, as you watch the second half, how did TCU get back into this game, and what did you see from TCU in terms of the red zone offense in the second half?
Yeah, the red zone offense in the second half, and it was the fourth down conversion that didn't work, the fourth down conversion that did work, and the 2-point conversion that didn't work. And like you say, the offense down there, when it gets close, it refuses to do the things that it had been successful that got you all the way up there to that point. The drive that ended in the fourth down conversion failure, I guess that was in the third quarter. That I can't believe they didn't score on that drive.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen a bunch of social media backlash, at least maybe in the darker depths of caveman people on Facebook, saying why didn't you, if you had just kicked the field goal and kicked the extra point? Well, you're down 26-6. You're not kicking a field goal,
Correct.
in the second half to make it 26-9. That is not the decision that you're bemoaning there. I think that's very clearly, you have to attempt to score a touchdown when you have the ball inside the 5-yard line at that point in the game. So I'm okay with all that. But for the series of play calls, the fade, I thought Savion had excellent position on that play. If it had been a play where he has, if it's just a slant, or if it's any other route other than throw it to the band, I don't know. I think ban the fade is a meme, but it is that way for a reason. It is rarely the thing that succeeds in that situation. And then to come out empty set, no threat of a run. I mean, Texas just dropped their entire defense into the end zone to allow to guard the pass plays there. No chance of success on that play. I think, that is a play that 9 times out of 10 in that drive, you're seeing 2 or 3 RPOs with Max Duggan last year. You're seeing probably the same type of thing with Chandler Morris. It goes back to Texas had no reason to even think about defending against Hoover in the run, and it made it very, very difficult when you're packed in tight like that to get anything completed. And it was the same thing, the fade to Savion on the 2-point conversion play, that would have made a 1-score game there late, where that following touchdown could have had another 2-point conversion attempt to potentially tie the game. I don't know. I mean, watching it live, it looked like there could have been a penalty on that one. I mean, it seemed like there was pretty clear contact, pretty clear early. You could have at least called the holding. I mean, Steve Sarkisian had been whining all week and probably all season about the way that Big 12 officials had handled Xavier Worthy this season. And clearly, Big 12 officials decided to call the game differently in this one. But for them to not use that same mindset in that play, I think that was probably the one officiating, like, come on. I think there's probably several, but that was the one to me that I understand keeping the flag in your pocket because it's a critical moment. You're not trying to decide the game based on, something ticky tack, but given
Mhm.
that you had been calling it like that um all day for Xavier Worthy, and the first time you have a chance to do it on the other side, you don't. I don't know. I have a tough time with that one.
Yeah, I definitely agree. There were a few plays where they have the window dressing to turn around and throw the fade to Savion. He was definitely getting held, and there were a couple other plays where you could argue there should be a flag. But for me, I try to avoid those kinds of, well, if they threw the flag there, then maybe TCU wins the game or has a better result. I feel like there were enough situations throughout the game where if TCU had executed better or frankly called better plays on offense, they would have come away with a victory. And unfortunately, it's another one possession loss for TCU. And they pointed out on the broadcast, and I think we've hit on it a few times on the podcast as well, that TCU last year was 6-1 in one score games. With this loss, TCU this season is now 0-4. And we've talked about the reasons why that is. The turnovers are one reason, the red zone issues are another, penalties have been a factor as well. But I think moving forward, if there are some positives that you can take away from this game, I think the big positive for the offense is that Savion Williams looked like a true number one receiver in this game. TCU has really gone with a wide receiver by committee approach this year because there are so many different guys, so many different mouths to feed. And coming in, Jack Besh, I think, is injured. Dalen Wright, injured. Warren Thompson, injured. But you still had Jalen Robinson out there. You still had JP Richardson and JoJo Earl, a couple other guys. Savion Williams was the alpha dog in this game. And he has shown over these last few weeks, he can be that guy. I really think he can be a number one featured wide receiver. He's got the size, he's got the strength. I mean, how many plays have we seen over the last few weeks where it takes 3 or 4 guys to take down Savion Williams? He's a big, strong dude. I think he's improved as a pass catcher, he's improved as a route runner. The downfield plays may not have really been there this year, but it was really exciting to see him have a big game and sort of carry this TCU offense at times with big plays in the passing game. And Jared Wiley, I thought, had a nice game too. He had a couple big grabs, of course, that wheel route where he breaks wide open and picks up, I think, 46 yards. He had a big play there. Um, and then overall, we've hit on it a couple times. TCU's desire to play, the excitement factor, the energy factor. I thought TCU came out and really finished the game with tremendous effort. And I think overall the effort, the energy was much better in this game than in some of the other losses, specifically the Kansas State loss. So, Sonny Dykes after the game said that they're already excited about having the chance to play Baylor this coming weekend. So, I think for TCU offensively, you have to have more balance. You have to be able to run the football. Again, Amani Bailey, I've sung his praises all season. He's one of the best running backs in the conference. You got to have balance. Continue to feed Savion Williams. He's your best receiver right now, at least in my opinion. And then defensively, you did a pretty good job against the run in the second half. Hopefully, you can build on that going into the Baylor game. I don't think Baylor really has any running backs that are really imposing or threatening to me, at least. So hopefully you can do a good job against the run when you take on the Bears. And this is it. You're 4-6. You have 2 games left. You got to go win-win in order to get to a bowl game. So we'll really see over these next couple of weeks how badly this team wants to get into the postseason, or if they want to just get done with this year and move on to 2024.
Yeah, and a positive for me that I'm thinking about, and maybe it's just the way that I'm choosing to cope with how this season is going, but and that's fine. So TCU, this game in particular, but the way this season has gone, where you know TCU has fallen on the wrong side of these one score games and these kind of toss up plays, things that can just flip a coin, and if one little thing happens, this season just feels a whole lot better. Um, it feels a lot like in 2013. TCU is playing Baylor, Baylor team that's ranked, I think, in the top 10, that's fighting for their BCS positioning and for a Big 12 championship. And TCU has them on the ropes, outplays them, probably deserves to win the game, and ends up coming away with a 3-point loss. And Baylor goes on and goes to the Fiesta Bowl and loses to UCF. But that game of like, okay, you're just not quite there. You're just missing a little bit, a little something. You've already got Trevon Boykin. You've already got this team is right there ready. Is it going to? What do you need to do to make that next step? And that team made a pretty wholesale change to its coaching staff with a new offensive philosophy and all of that coming out of that season. Mm-hmm. And of course, the next two seasons are two of the best in TCU recent history. So, the next one is 2021. You get the win over Baylor. That's great. But I'm thinking of the Oklahoma game at Norman. Quentin Johnston has a huge breakout. He becomes a national star, but TCU loses and ends up losing pretty big, but is kind of hanging around in a game with a team that it has no business hanging around with. And again, TCU season ends, make the biggest change to the coaching staff you can, getting rid of Gary Patterson, and comes out the next season and goes to the national championship game. So who are the players from this team who are going to be those stars in next season? Who are the guys who become legends for TCU? I think that's the big question. And then what are the changes that are going to be made to put those players in the position to become legends? Do we think that Josh Hoover is Max Duggan or Trevon Boykin? I think obviously that is a heavy burden to place on someone's shoulders, but that's what you're asking of the quarterback for TCU, is to go lead the team in that way to those types of heights. So I think there's plenty to be positive about this game. I think there's plenty to be negative about this season, but what it means going forward, we've seen TCU bounce back from these depths of feeling like it's as bad as it can get, but really you're right there on this knife's edge of flip the coin right more often than not, and you're gonna you at least have an opportunity at a magical season. So I don't know. That's just how I'm choosing to feel good about this, even though, it sucks to lose to Texas anytime. It sucks to lose this final game to them. And, for them to have this, fourth ever win over TCU while conference mates, congratulations. Maybe they will have an opportunity this season to have as good a season as TCU has had, probably 3 or 4 times while in the Big 12 conference during that period. So, I also think we're going to transition into the Big 12 here. Mm-hmm. Going into this season, I was like, anybody but Texas and Oklahoma, anybody, it doesn't matter. And then as the season went on, I was pretty sick of Kansas State people generally on the internet. So, I would have been, and I think that there's something to going forward. You kind of want to just like let this season be the end of that Texas Oklahoma era. Let them have their fun this year and not give anyone else a little bit of a leg up. So it's like, all right, I don't know as it's going along. I don't know if I want Kansas State to go in there and go take this championship again, back-to-back championships. I don't like it. But now again, Texas people, I don't know. I'm back on the fence of like anybody but Texas. So maybe we'll see after the Oklahoma game how I feel about Oklahoma's online fan base. But I don't know. I guess we'll see what happens coming up. But it's a kind of a bummer way to end this rivalry, and maybe we'll play next year in the playoff when the 12-team playoff has home games at campus sites.
And I'll add on to a couple things as far as what you said about who's going to be around here next year. I was surprised actually to see, looking at TCU's roster, quite a few players I believe are using COVID eligibility. So I looked at the roster, and Savion Williams, for one example, is listed as a junior, and he's been around for 4 years. Johnny Hodges is listed as a junior. Shadrack Banks is a junior, and Imani Bailey is a fourth-year player who's also listed as a junior. So those are a few guys right there who can really help turn your program around should they come back next year. And then my last item on Josh Hoover, I think it kind of speaks volumes when you look at social media. And Hoover, he's had some struggles, no doubt, but the consensus on social media really seems to be, let Josh Hoover finish the season. Let him continue to show us what he can do. Maybe people just don't want to see Chandler Morris and are just kind of, we know what Chandler Morris is. We don't really know what Josh Hoover is yet. So let's let him finish the season. And I really agree with that. I think TCU has nothing to lose with letting Josh Hoover play. He's a redshirt freshman. He's only started a few games. And frankly, I've liked what I've seen from him. I think a lot of the mistakes that he's made are very correctable with experience and some more coaching. So I think I'm with the many people on social media, at least people who respond to our posts on our Frogs of War Facebook page, that Josh Hoover may have what it takes to be the guy going forward. And then you're going to have some guys. Hopefully you don't have a Texas A&M / Oklahoma / OSU type exodus after this year, but I really believe you have some guys that you could bring back in 2024 that can be really integral pieces of that roster. And I think with that, we'll go ahead and transition into just a brief little Big 12 Week 11 football recap. And there were some big upsets in the Big 12 this weekend. TCU, of course, nearly coming away with the upset, but we have Texas Tech going on the road and taking down Kansas 16-13 in Lawrence. Jason Bean got injured in that game for the Jayhawks as the Red Raiders were able to escape Lawrence with a win there. Also, UCF with the space uniforms destroying Oklahoma State 45-3. The final score there, a complete stunner. I don't know if anybody in our Frogs of War roundtable picked UCF to win this game, but and after Oklahoma State had strung, 5 wins in a row, they get completely run out of the stadium by UCF. Cincinnati also went on the road and took down Houston 24-14. This is a pretty inconsequential game in the conference, but it was the first Big 12 win of the season for Cincinnati. So congratulations to them. Oklahoma blows out West Virginia 59-20. Iowa State goes on the road in the Big 12 after dark and takes down BYU 45-13. And then Kansas State coasting over Baylor. No trouble there, 59-25. Anthony, any brief thoughts here on what you saw from the Big 12 this weekend?
I mean, the number one thought is Ollie Gordon, 25 yards. which is about 1/10 of what he was expected to get and has been doing, per game in the last this season. Man, yeah, I did think that UCF had a very strong chance at winning this game. I did pick them, I'm pretty sure, in the round table and in our staff picks, and but no way did I think that it was going to be this much of a complete blowout. And uh, man, John Rice Plumlee, terrific. The Space Unis, pretty terrific. Uh, you know, fun to see that game happen. Texas Tech beating Kansas ends up a sloppy game, a lot of injuries. Felt like there was a series there with like 5 or 6 plays in a row somebody was getting injured. I don't know if something was going on with the field or if it was just a nasty football game between these two teams, but Texas Tech comes away with that win. Kind of a really fun game in the early window. I know probably a lot of people were watching the Michigan game and all the shenanigans that were going on after the game with like all the Michigan versus everybody and the interim coach acting like John Harbaugh or Jim Harbaugh had passed away, or that like he was, in the hospital with terminal cancer or something. I don't know. That's a whole soap opera of those folks. Glad that we got to take care of them last season. But yeah, I think those are, man, Baylor awful. Looked as bad as TCU did against Kansas State. Oklahoma rolling, and Iowa State kind of frisky. I think that game was expected to be closer than it turned out, and they put a beating on BYU in Provo late night, and they've got a game coming up with Texas that could be massive implications. So still a lot of excitement in this conference, and still, even though this is probably going to drop a lot of these teams out of top 25, out of college football playoff rankings, it's still fun to see the depth of this conference step up and get some wins here over the ranked teams.
And one quick look here at the conference standings before we transition into basketball. Texas is firmly in the driver's seat at 6-1 in the conference, but you have 4 teams that are tied at 5-2. Oklahoma, Kansas State, Oklahoma State, and Iowa State. Quite a few of these teams have played each other. There's potential for a massive tiebreaker. I don't really know what the tiebreaker would look like, but I believe Kansas and West Virginia at 4-3 in the conference are also still in lurking status. So with only 2 weeks left in the regular season, still about half the conference is in contention for a spot in the Big 12 championship game. So it'll be really exciting to see what happens there. Continue to follow us at frogsawar.com and on Frogs Up every week as we recap all of the results in the Big 12 for football. And with that, we will go ahead and transition into our basketball discussion this evening, because we have 2 games to discuss. The TCU men's team, after blowing out Southern in the season opener on Monday, returned home for another non-conference game against Omaha, and TCU rolled in this game pretty handily, 82-60 the final score. Relatively scot-free game for the Frogs, as several individuals again stepped up. On the offensive end, JaKobe Coles once again was outstanding, had 21 points to lead the way, was almost flawless from the floor. He had 7 of 8 shooting from the field, 2 for 2 from 3-point range, and he was 5 for 5 from the free throw line, hitting half of TCU's free throws. So he was outstanding. Also had 6 rebounds. Emmanuel Miller, 17 points, 7 rebounds, 3 steals. Really good all-around performance from him. Micah Peavy, Jameer Nelson, they each had 10 points. Jameer Nelson also had 3 steals, and I believe this is after he had, I want to say, 5 steals in the game against Southern. So good two-way effort from him. Ernest Uday had 11 rebounds. He was the only TCU player in double digits in the rebounding category, and TCU really just beat up Omaha on the interior in this game. TCU had 50 points in the paint, 23 second chance points. A lot of that was due to offensive rebounding. TCU out-rebounded Omaha 52-25 in this game. So to double up another team on the glass, TCU just physically imposed their will on the interior and came away with a big win. So the Frogs get to 2-0. They have 2 games, I believe, this coming week at home, 2 more non-conference games. Tuesday, 7 o'clock against UT Rio Grande Valley, and then Friday at 7 o'clock as well against Mississippi Valley State. So overall, a good performance from TCU. Anthony, any thoughts on what you saw from TCU in this win over Omaha on Thursday?
Yeah, kind of a sleepy game. This is one, I don't know, not a lot happening here. It felt like that nobody was watching this game. There was no chatter, really, social media. No, I don't know. But I think takeaway here, the dominance in the paint and with, TCU nearly outscored Omaha's entire team game total score with points in the paint. I think TCU had 50 plus points in the paint.
Mm-hmm.
Which is 50 exactly. So big time dominance down low. I think TCU is going to have a height advantage over a lot of teams this season. With Micah Peavy in the starting lineup, it makes it so that outside of Jameer Nelson, you're starting 6'7", 6'8" plus across the board. And in these games against, your lower level Division I teams, sub 250 Ken Palm teams, they're not going to have the kind of height and the kind of length to keep up with a team as big as TCU is. So dominating the rebounding, dominating in the paint. It's good to see on a night where TCU shot horribly from 3-point, something that they did it particularly well in the first game. So to be able to kind of almost feel like you're sleepwalking through a game and put on a performance like that, and really it's all JaKobe Coles didn't miss until like near the very end of the game. He was perfect most of this game. He terrific. Emmanuel Miller kind of put on more of his terrific hat as well. And I think once we get through November, we'll begin to find out a whole lot more about this team. If TCU loses a game in November, it will be a major disaster. So if frankly, if they're within striking distance at any point in these games, I mean, TCU should run away with these, and that's just kind of the way that the schedule sets up, which is the way that it should, because you're playing a ridiculous gauntlet through the conference schedule, and really in through these. The December schedule is pretty tough as well. So I think it's good that this team is getting its legs under it and seems to be playing at a very high level.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of the guys have found their roles already. And another team where it seems like the players have really found their roles is the TCU women's team. Speaking of running away from opponents, a Wednesday night game at Schulmeyer, TCU women's basketball team also moving to 2-0, blowing out Texas A&M-Kingsville. Final score 86-48. TCU nearly doubling up their opponent in this one. A lot of individual standouts. Once again, Madison Connor has been phenomenal on the perimeter shooting wise, 22 points after a 30-point performance in the season opener. Sedona Prince, another double-double for her, 16 points and 10 rebounds. She's going to probably average a double-double this year. With that size and that skill, if she stays healthy, she's going to be an unbelievable asset for this women's team. And Agnes Emma-Nnopu also had a double-double, 14 points, 10 rebounds. Really, really solid two-way player that's going to bring a lot to this team. And then Jaden Owens running point again, 6 assists, has led the team in assists in the first 2 games of the season. TCU shot just under 51% from the field, 40% from three-point range, 26 points in the paint. A lot of that with Sedona Prince getting busy down low. 26 points off turnovers. I believe they forced 16 turnovers on defense in this game, and then 20 assists. That that speaks volumes for how well this offense is playing right now. The way that the ball is moving around the floor, cross court passes, getting the ball swung around the perimeter, getting the ball inside. TCU is really doing it all right now. And the girls actually played earlier today against Rice and picked up a win. We're not going to have enough time to get to that tonight, but we will get to that in our midweek. But Anthony, not sure if you were able to catch much of this, but any thoughts on just the continued strong start to the season from the women's team?
Yeah, I wasn't able to watch any of this game, but I mean, it's quite clear that this team has got something. I think the step up to Rice in the game today was, I think that's a pretty large step up from Texas A&M Kingsville to Rice. There'll be bigger steps ahead, but TCU continues to dominate across the board here. So the stats tell the story, and I think that there's a chance that, I mean, Prince is that 3 blocks in each of the opening games. I mean,
Yeah.
that's
Yep.
man, that's she's a whole lot to handle, and these teams are going to have a really tough time trying to deal with her. So I think, just another continued excitement for TCU women's basketball.
And their non-conference schedule is somewhat similar to the men's team. I think the men's team is going to have some tougher games with Georgetown and Arizona State, that midway point of the non-conference slate. But looking at the non-conference for the women's team, and I think we talked about this after we recap the first win. There's a legitimate chance that TCU goes undefeated in the entire non-conference portion of the schedule. So we will hit on that Rice game when we do our midweek episode, where we'll also preview the Baylor football game and get into some other TCU things. We have one last TCU item to hit on tonight before we sign off. The TCU volleyball team in dire need of some wins after getting swept by Iowa State last week, going on the road, taking on the 20th ranked team in the country, the Baylor Bears, sweeping Baylor in back-to-back matches. This was a huge result for TCU volleyball, getting up to 15-12 overall, 8-8 in the Big 12 conference with only 3 matches remaining in the regular season. TCU winning 3-1 on Friday, and then a reverse sweep Saturday as TCU football was taking on Texas. The volleyball team was wrapping up a very narrow 3-2 reverse sweep where, I mean, I think Baylor outplayed TCU in this match. TCU had a hitting percentage that was well below 200, but outstanding individual performances from several players in both of these matches. Lily Nicholson continued to fill in that starting setter role. Riley Buckley is still out with an injury, but she had 39 assists and 9 digs in the win on Friday. Followed that up with 50 assists and 11 digs for a double-double in the Saturday match. So that's her second 50-plus assist match in, I think, 6 or 7 total. So outstanding stuff from her to be able to step in and play at that high of a level against a team like Baylor. And it's a very historic achievement for TCU. First time in program history knocking off a top 25 team in back-to-back matches. So congratulations to head coach Jason Williams and all of the players. Just a tremendous result. You really needed to win. I mean, just getting one of these would be huge, but to get both of them, that's a huge feather in the cap as you go forward over these last 3 matches. Melanie Parra was great in both of these matches. 2 double-doubles, 24 kills and 15 digs on Friday, 16 kills and 14 digs on Saturday. Jalen Gibson also had a really nice set of matches for TCU. She's that complimentary hitter with Melanie Parra and Audrey Knowles, who's the All Big 12 preseason honoree coming in. 14 kills, 16 digs on Friday, 14 kills, 11 digs on Saturday, 2 double-doubles for her. Cecily Bramschreiber, the starting libero, 2 of her better performances all season, 22 digs on Friday and then 20 digs on Saturday, back-to-back 20-plus dig efforts for her. So TCU is going to have a road match against Houston on Wednesday, and then next week, home matches against High Point and BYU. And that'll be it for the regular season before TCU gets into the Big 12 tournament. So, uh, again, outstanding result for TCU to come back and get the 3-2 reverse sweep on Saturday was really fun to watch. And TCU is still going to have a shot at potentially clinching a spot in the NCAA tournament if they can finish these last few matches of the regular season with a couple of wins.
Yeah, I was following along with on Saturday, thinking like, all right, we've got Yasmin Ryan wins the NWSL championship. All right, the big comeback over Baylor in volleyball, and here we are at against Texas. I thought it was all pointing towards TCU comeback there. But got to watching that game on Friday where TCU kind of dominated Baylor in that one. I mean, I think that, yeah, man, if the team can play like they did these last two, there would be a scary team come tournament time. I think that's a team that was able to win a tournament game last year and could very well win a tournament game if it gets an invite this year as well. Headed into the week, TCU was 54th in the RPI, so pretty clearly a bubble to outside of the tournament. But you win 2 games on the road to a top 20 team. That number is probably going to skyrocket there for TCU. Should be jumping up those rankings and should be absolutely on the radar for selection committee time. So still big games to come. I think that Houston game in particular is Houston's been pretty impressive this season. BYU's been impressive. So you go win these last 3 games, it may lock up a spot in the NCAA tournament, frankly.
Yeah, no question. It's these last couple of conference matches are going to be huge for TCU. Both Houston and BYU have been very good this year. So we'll be continuing to recap TCU volleyball, not only here on Frogs Up, but also on our website, frogsofwar.com. Every Monday morning, volleyball recaps posted to the website. Be sure to check that out. I think that will wrap it up for our episode this evening, a very lengthy episode, again, with football and basketball going on, a very busy time for TCU athletics, and we will be back in a couple days for our midweek episode. We will preview the Baylor football game. We will have some more men's and women's basketball items to hit on, as well as a preview of week 12 in the Big 12 for football. Again, I'm Russ Hodges. That is Anthony North. We appreciate all of y'all joining us here on the Frogs Up TCU Sports Podcast as we recap all of the latest and greatest things happening with TCU Sports. Continue to follow us on social media, Facebook and Twitter at Frogs of War, also online at frogsofwar.com, charliehustle.com. Use the promo code FrogsOWar. Get 15% off all your TCU items. Honored Athlete trading cards coming soon. Lots of exciting things happening. We will go ahead and sign off with a Frogs Up.
Get your frogs up.